Hello, and welcome to Varn blog. And today I'm seeing another debate around protest of Bernie Sanders, uh, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Jamal Bowman, at the time in which Bowman is 17 points down in a primary and Cory Bush is 22 points down in a primary challenge in the Democratic Party against people to their right. Now, I have been taken aback by some of the attempts to kick out people criticizing this action from organizations because it is criticism of the Palestinian liberation movement when it seems to be a disagreement on tactics. But then I saw a much larger trend from specifically people around the Jacobin magazine and Majority Report orbit that said that this was a meaningless protest. Well, which way do you want it? Are you mad because it's going to risk Bowman's ability to get reelected, or is it meaningless? The problem that you have is misrecognizing a historical moment in the past, taking anti-systemic movements from 10 years ago and thinking that that was the same as building up an electoral base for socialism. Notice here that I say for socialism, not for progressive politicians. All right? Voting electoralism, even from the reformist standpoint, is about a means to an end. They are supposed to vote about certain things. If that doesn't happen, and in this case it hasn't, then what is it for? Furthermore, I got annoyed when people around Left Reckoning, particularly David Grissom, started calling people who agreed with the action against Bernie and co. ultra-leftist. Ultra-leftism has historically been an accusation of abstentionism. That is a substantive, not a tactical disagreement. Now, I know, since Peter Camejo, ultra-leftism is basically the vibes of taking the leftmost position, and we all know what that means in effect. But that category expansion ruins the specificity of the word. And it demeans it to just being an effective slur. It removes most of its substantive, historical, and cognitive content to, I think this is too left-wing, and I am pragmatic. But what are you pragmatic about, and what are you loyal to? Should the DSA or any socialist organization have endorsed these politicians? Even the Communist Party of the United States, which we historically considered tailless prior to 2018, did not formally endorse politicians for reasons that make good sense. You don't have a mechanism to control them in both directions. So is this pointless or not? Well, the problem that you have is some of the squad, for reasons that could be tied into systemic racism, but also for their own incoherence, seem to be losing badly before any of this was really even considered. The polls that have Jamal Bowman down are from April, as are the polls that have Bush down. And the trend seems to be in a downward direction, not an upward one. This is very similar to saying we must all support Biden to protect against Trump no matter what, no matter how unpopular he gets. But this is a way to be a captured electorate that can only move rightward. That is a strategic orientation. Now, what programmatic agreement did anyone have to endorse these candidates? Sure, we know their platforms and their campaign promises, which they largely, frankly, have not kept. But beyond the fact, there is no agreement in these organizations as to what the grounds really were for endorsement, nor was there the votes in district or in the larger society, nor the money, as the DSA doesn't have a lot of money on its own, to hold these electeds accountable one way or the other. So endorsing them was premature particularly when you were not in their district. What was the point? Except to opportunistically grow your own movement off the backs of the seeming popularity of these politicians. And now that they are no longer popular because they have not been able to keep their campaign promises and they have angered parts of their base, what's the point of you defending them? There's a reason why I do not endorse politicians or tell you how I vote on this channel. It is not because I'm a total abstentionist from any and all electoralism. But opportunism structurally works the same in many cases. We can clearly see that a lot of the people who will take aim at Biden make the exact same structural arguments when their own candidates within the Democratic Party are pushed against the wall, which hollows out their position as an anti-systemic movement. Conversely, do not assume people who disagree on the effectiveness of a tactic are against the substance of your policy. All these seems to confuse means and ends. Is your goal to get a ceasefire in Palestine and stop the slaughter of Palestinians or not? Is your goal to bring about socialism in America or not? You can have both goals, but they aren't the same goal. And beyond that, merely getting people elected and calling people slurs when they disagree with you, or trying to kick out anyone in the organization who criticizes a tactic, is a sign of structural weakness. Furthermore, and I say this again, most of these organizations had no programmatic basis to base their endorsement on in the first place. The entire debate then is from misrecognizing a historical moment and acting prematurely. It would be as if we had to defend Nancy Pelosi forever because of her stances in 1987 when she came into Congress on a challenge during the Rainbow Coalition period. You see, all this has happened before, even in living memory, although most of you don't seem to know it. Furthermore, the purpose of protest is not always policy. I mean, they're not particularly effective for policy, period. Protesters don't make policy. The historical reason for protesting was either to appeal and petition the king, to state dissent, or to show that you could field an insurrectionary force. And in almost all cases, most protests today don't do that. There are other reasons to support protests that don't do this. I support the protest on the universities because in addition to calling out the influence of various lobbies, they have actually exposed the extent in which these universities have become financial instruments. That is downstream and perhaps not even totally intended by the protest itself, but it's something I think we should support. But do I think they will end the war in Gaza? No, absolutely not. I'm not even sure that they would have the effect of expanding BDS enough to have a substantive effect on the Israeli government. But nonetheless, there are reasons to support them. Beyond those critiques, the goal is not just policy. We can get addicted to protesting. In fact, I would argue that we have been, and that most protests don't work for anything but internal solidarity or internal resolution building, but even that, it's a very mild effect. But this entire debate has just got me thinking about why were people endorsing socialist politicians when there's only like 10 of them, when there is no grounds for clear demands other than a few ad hoc policy proposals, none of which have been achieved. Honestly, the way people acted during the railroad strike should have been enough to clue people into the problems with this tactic. If you are still holding on to this, you're going to have to explain why these politicians are so unpopular in districts where they should not be. Have a good day. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell. We have some Khan Il Kahanans to thank. Those are $10 supporters here at the channel, and I would like to thank them. So let me thank them here. I'd like to thank Cam, B. Berger, David G., Gabriel C., and Gabriela C. Thank you for your support. It means a lot and makes this possible. If you'd like to support us here at Varn Blog, I don't monetize this channel. I don't accept that many ads. Even on the free podcast, we're mostly supported by Patreon support directly. I don't take sponsorships. You can help us by subscribing to the Patreon for as little as $3. And if you don't want to do that, you can just share the videos. Have a great day.